Well, good evening, everybody. First, I want to thank venture investors. I believe this is my 7th year at their annual conference. I wasn't invited the first year. You've got to earn it. That's fair. I've been the CEO of HistoSonics now for 8 years. They've been, from day one, just amazing partners. What you would want in an investor. They've been everything and more. And then Jim Adox is a chairman, and he's not just a chairman, he's the best chairman I've ever worked with. And he's become more than that. He's become a dear friend. And then to many of you in the room who are LPs of venture investors, some even direct investors of HistoSonics, I can't thank you enough. We need every dollar to make something like this work. As Jim said, the company was founded 15 years ago, but it was 10 years prior to that it was invented at the University of Michigan. So we joke it's a 25-year overnight success story. It takes that long to take something that was an experiment. It was a little bit more than when I started, but when venture investors discovered it, it was a therapy transducer that was hanging from rails on a ceiling. An industrial-sized generator that would have never passed hospital 60601 safety testing, and there was zero automation. So it's good luck. You've got this concept that could work, now make it work. And so I just can't tell you how meaningful every dollar that you all have given to venture investors that have come through HistoSonics means to us. We take that very seriously. We don't waste a single dollar that's given to us. So thank you all. So we're developing the future of non-invasive surgery. When it was invented at the University of Michigan, it was a pediatric cardiologist who asked this group of ultrasound researchers, is there a way to do non-invasive procedures, non-invasive surgery? Today, we invasively go into a pediatric patient and put a pin-sized hole in their septum, but it's very invasive. Is there a way that you can use what you're doing in ultrasound completely non-invasively to create surgery? Well, the way that they were using HIFU, high-intensity focused ultrasound, would have never worked because at the end of the focal point is heat, and thermal deposition would have never worked to accomplish this goal. So they completely inverted what the world knew as high-intensity focused ultrasound and invented histotripsy. And then a year later, coined the phrase histotripsy, and again, the rest is histotripsy. We got our FDA clearance in October of 2023, so it's been a little over 5 quarters now. In transparency, we didn't know a whole lot about this prior to the last year of commercialization. We had treated a couple dozen patients. We knew it worked well, it was safe, it was effective, at least acutely, short term. But holy smokes, what we've learned over the last year, we've been given a gift. The company's been given a gift, the world will be given a gift. The way that histotripsy is being used today by now 50 centers in the US. By the end of the year, we'll be in 100 centers. We've got orders for far more than that we're delivering on. The demand from physicians, more importantly, the demand from patients has been overwhelming because it's doing so much benefit for patients. I'm going to walk you through, for those who are new to the story, a quick animation of what the procedure looks like, what the system looks like, and then I've got a short video to show from physician and patient testimonials, and then as David mentioned, I just couldn't be more honored to meet someone who's becoming a dear friend. We only first Zoomed last week, get to meet him tonight in person, but a real patient, someone who's experienced histotripsy and can talk firsthand about that experience. So when a hospital orders an Edison system, it's not inexpensive. It's about $1.5 million-ish, but equivalent of a surgical robot. The Edison sits to the right of the patient, and over that robotic arm sits a therapy transducer. Our partner on the imaging side, how do you see into the body, is GE. We use their ultrasound to visualize the liver and ultimately the target and ultimately observe the treatment. You'll see this here when I play the animation. And then to the right is just a water degasser. So we need a medium because everything we do is ultrasound, from the imaging to the therapy. So it needs to sit in a membrane that's over the patient. That's our single-use disposable. That degassed water, just the hospital water, gets pumped into the membrane. So to the right is just a degassing station. The physician, we are radically democratizing the way non-invasive surgery, the way surgery is going to be done. You don't need to go to the very best, the surgeon who's done thousands of Da Vinci robotic procedures because you want the best. You don't need to do that at all because it's completely democratized. There's no hand skills and no dexterity required. Everything is done on that super high fidelity 4K touchscreen display. Everything. It's the what a physician would want in a radiology control room that we've put bedside of the patient. So everything they do is on that touchscreen display, other than controlling a couple of knobs and hitting a couple of buttons. So with that, I'll play this quick animation. And so they're using what we call a space mouse to control the robotic arm to position. That's the therapy transducer that's going to sit in this membrane that's got the degassed water. Ultimately, then they're going to target a tumor. What you'll see next is just the physician, again, controlling knobs, turning knobs to create the size and the dimensions of the treatment area. And then literally, with the hit of a button, they automate treatment. And then they can watch treatment in real time. They can watch it on the real-time ultrasound, streaming ultrasound, or they can watch it in that diagram there. The red dot is the active histotripsy cloud as it moves through the prescribed volume that the physician has determined. And here's the real importance of the robotics. These incredibly fine micro-positioning of the joints to move this small little histotripsy bubble cloud, the size of a grain of rice, through a fairly large prescribed volume. So you need that automation and robotic precision to deliver that histotripsy. Ultimately, the end result of what we're doing is we're liquefying targeted tissue or the tumors. Ultimately, this tissue and tumor gets absorbed very naturally by the body. Generally, within 90 days, treatments are completely gone. It's like nothing else that exists today other than if you were to go in and remove it surgically. And then everything comes off the patient. There's no pressure to hold. There's no incision that was made. The patient wakes up generally from anesthesia, and they go home. And they go back to the quality of life. We believe, we've learned a lot now that we're commercial in liver tumors. We are just a couple of patients through enrolling in our pivotal kidney tumor trial, and we've begun treating patients. We've now treated over a dozen in our pancreatic tumor trial. To start 2026, we'll be treating prostate. What we've learned over the last, call it 12 to 15 months, is that there's almost nothing we can't do. We believe the future of surgeries, of procedures, whether they're minor procedures and you need a skin lesion removed, or whether what it's doing today, we're treating tumors deep in the abdomen, that can all be done with a transducer like you see up here, completely non-invasive. So completely eliminating surgery altogether at some point. And we know this will massively expand markets. We have patients today, we hear it every day. They did not have an option for any treatments prior to histotripsy. So we'll massively expand options. We know that, or expand markets. We know that patients are going to demand non-invasive procedures. Our mission is to simply improve the lives of patients who are suffering from significant diseases. We're starting with cancer. This starts with, Bruce and I were talking about this. My dad unfortunately passed away years ago of pancreatic cancer. The hope, if he would have woken up one day and found histotripsy on the internet, the hope that that would have provided him. Our patients go to the hospital. Unlike if you're going to go have a surgical procedure, you have a knee replacement, there's no hope. You know you're about to get your ass kicked, and you're going to recover from that. Our patients go to hospitals with hope that they're going to be treated non-invasively and go back to the quality of life, because that's what they're hearing from other patients, that's what they're hearing from physicians. So our journey starts with, can we provide the patient with hope? But then ultimately, can we just improve their quality of life? Can we make them feel better? Can we reduce the size of their tumor because we're liquefying it? Can we reduce whatever pain that they're having? So there's a huge market opportunity for us just in palliation, just in we can make this patients feel better. To ultimately, we're going to prove that we're part of extending their life. We see it already today, and ultimately want to be part of their cure. There's a major paradigm shift that's happening. My dad went through it. At some point, Mr. Blue, the medication's not helping. Get your affairs in order and just enjoy the rest of your life. The reason for that is everything that exists in the world prior to October 6th of 2013 was invasive, toxic, or with side effects. That's just a reality. Any other option, invasive, toxic, or side effect. Think of an option. They're all that way. Now there's histotripsy. It's non-invasive, it's non-toxic, and as you'll hear, with almost no known side effects. So this massive paradigm shift is in the process of happening. Why wouldn't I? If you're a patient, what data do I need? I have no other options. You just told me that. This is non-invasive, non-toxic, and I'm reading on the internet about patients who are, they literally believe that histotripsy has saved their lives. That's not going to happen overnight. It's a huge lift, but it's a paradigm shift that's happening right now. And so with that, just a short video to let you hear from some of our physicians, some of our patients firsthand, and then we'll introduce Bruce.
A patient who had a tumor that was in the right liver was actually surgically removed, and now it's recurred in the left liver. And there's maybe 20 tumors. They can't have surgery because they've already had half their liver removed. And where these tumors actually are, they're really in the center of the liver, which is kind of a more dangerous area to treat. So you definitely don't want to put needles in there.
The difference, the contrast from like being post-surgery where it was like, everybody leave mommy alone, mommy's just got to lay down, I'm in lots of pain, to like, no, mommy can like take you to the bathroom on the beach, or we can go look for seashells. Like, the contrast was huge. It was kind of mind-boggling. And I think that there were definitely some moments that I was like, okay, is this actually happening? Like, is this real? And then it was like, yep, this is real, and I want this again if I need it.
Histotripsy changed my life for the better because it's given me the knowing of more life. I know that every time I see my grandchildren, if I'd not followed the Histotripsy trial, where would I be?
We are being very effective at controlling tumors, especially with pretty minimal side effects.
No pain, no intrusion into my body, no nothing, no cuts, nothing. I just felt like I'd had the sleep, a good sleep, that was it. It still hasn't hit me what a miracle it is.
I was running out of options, and I was reluctant to go through some of the same things that I had before. I wondered if my body could take it anymore. It's been about 9 months since I had histotripsy. I had no pain. There were no incisions. I woke up. I could do everything that I did before. I was just so thankful. The tumor board has discussed my options, and currently histotripsy is the only option I have left.
When I was told that there was no hope, the worst bit for me was driving home to tell my children, to tell my friends, to tell my family. Histotripsy gave me hope again, having been told that there was no hope, basically, to go home and sort my affairs out, inoperable, incurable. I had a follow-up scan at 12 weeks post-histotripsy, and that showed drastic results in the liver. I was given that hope that you need to fight and to continue. I'm going to be here for a long time and see my grandchildren one day.
In time, this technology is likely to replace what we call standard treatment today.
Who cut the onions? Yeah, I can watch that. I've already watched it hundreds and hundreds of times, and I will say, those patients thank all of you. Again, back to every dollar has mattered to this company. It matters to these patients very dearly. So it's almost unbelievable how this all came about. I think it was 2 weeks ago that I was even made aware of Bruce and what's happened. So Bruce is the first patient in the world who has had 2 histotripsy treatments, or histotripsy treatments in 2 different organs. Was part of our pancreatic tumor phase 1 study in Barcelona, Spain, and then came back to the US, and just a couple of weeks later had his liver tumors treated, which is the future of what we do at HistoSonics. Is you'll go into a procedural room, and if you have multiple tumors on multiple organs, they'll just be able to zap them completely non-invasively. It's no longer just science fiction. We've got a person in the room who recently went through it and can talk to his experience. So with that, I'd like to introduce Bruce Sherman. I'm going to call him my friend and amazing human being who, again, without people like Bruce who are willing to be first and courageous as he is, we don't learn as a company, and we don't grow. So with that, Bruce, welcome.
I want to start out by saying, and I told this to Mike and both Mike and Jim, that I'm a somewhat emotional person anyway, but when I was diagnosed in July of last year, it seems I've taken it to a new level. So I apologize ahead of time for a tear here or there, but I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer that had spread to my liver on July 16th, 2024, and have been treated with chemo since then by a phenomenal oncologist in Des Moines, Iowa, who has been treating my wife for 28 years as a breast cancer, 2-time breast cancer survivor. And we got a phone call, and I don't remember, David could probably remember the exact date, but it was probably a couple months ago from David Arnstein saying that this is something you ought to check into, and it was HistoSonics and the Histotripsy and the Edison machine. And my oncologist knew nothing about it, nor did I. And I was very fortunate because he is the kind of doctor, I keep using the term, he took it like a dog with a bone. As soon as he heard about it, he wanted to know everything about it. And his first thing we did is we contacted Kevin Burns, who you saw in the video, that the doctor looks like a surfer. He does look like that too, and he looks like that in person, by the way. We talked about treating my liver tumor, and Dr. Burns said he'd do it anytime, you know, I would come out to California from Iowa. But he said you ought to, this is Dr. Burns said, you ought to check into the clinical trial going on in Barcelona, Spain on the pancreas right now. He said if you can get into that clinical trial, you'll want to do it before we do the liver, because once we do the liver, you won't be qualified for the trial. So with that, my oncologist got on the phone and called Dr. Santiago Sanchez Cabus, I think is his full name. Everybody calls him Santi. And he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. And they had many emails, text messages, phone calls over the next several days. And I think within 2 weeks of contacting him, he had sent him all my films, all my data, everything about my case. And we were in Barcelona within 2 weeks. And trying to think, it was on, I think, March 18th, I had the treatment. And on the 25th, 1 week later, they do a scan before you can leave Barcelona, which was fine because, you know, let me backtrack a little bit. As Mike was saying, that with the non-invasive, I had my procedure on a Monday. They kept me overnight. Tuesday, we went out for a paella dinner. It was wonderful. In the middle of the dinner, we got a text message from Sante saying, how's the paella? It was a restaurant he had recommended to us. And we said it was great, and my son was with us, and he said to my son, remind your dad not to eat too much. I put a big hole in his pancreas yesterday. And, you know, and then we spent 2 days in Valencia, and my wife dragged me all along Garcia Street shopping, and we had a great 6 days in Barcelona, and with no side effects. Absolutely, I think I made the comment to Mike that if I didn't have a couple of black lines on my chest, I would not have known anybody did anything to me. And just amazing. And they did the scan, and it showed that about 60 to 70% of my pancreatic tumor was gone, which was amazing.
What's amazing there is, like, who turns a cancer treatment into a vacation? I mean, that's really what you did, and it's amazing because that's how good you felt.
Yes, absolutely. I had no idea going into it. They said there would be no side effects, but it's kind of hard to believe when you hear what's going to happen that there's not going to be some side effect or some lingering something. And there hasn't been. I have a scan on Thursday this week. I think roughly every 2 months I have a scan, which is sent to Barcelona, along with blood work, which is required as part of the clinical trial. And when we got back, my oncologist, just as a sidebar, and I think Mike's aware of this, while I was in Spain, my oncologist went to the University of Iowa, which owns his practice, and said we have to get one of these machines in the state of Iowa. And I think...
counting on that, Bruce.
Well, I know he's going to push for it, and I think there's actually going to be a demo trial in June coming up next month. So hopefully that'll happen, so Iowans won't have to travel wherever they have to travel to get to it. But we got back, and as soon as I got back, my oncologist contacted Kevin Burns again in California and said, Bruce is back, and we set up a date, and 2 weeks later I was in California, and we were out there, and The good news on the chemotherapy I had, although it's tremendously hard on your body, my liver tumor did shrink about 50% with the chemo I had had for 6 months, which was a good thing. And I had the Histotripsy out in California, and he was able to shrink the liver tumor by another roughly 25, 30%. And I'm eligible, you know, if I want to do it again. I'm back on chemo now, the same treatment or protocol I was on prior to these treatments that was having positive effects on the liver tumor. So I don't know what to say, you know. I'm a very lucky person, and not because of the diagnosis I have or the future I have in front of me, because that's still unknown. I don't know, you know, if I'll be here a year from now or 10 years from now, who knows? I'm hoping more like 10. But I know with HistoSonics and what they're doing, I have a better chance than I did before. And my oncologist said when we first started chemo, he said, you have a timeline, and our goal is to treat you until something comes along that's better than what we're doing. And that happened, because when I started it, we didn't even know about the HistoSonics and the Edison. And I'm a firm believer that this technology, I mean, long after I'm gone, whether I pass away from natural causes or from pancreatic cancer or whenever it is, I did a small part in helping hopefully thousands of people, you know, improve their life and their treatment. You know, if we can't cure cancer, at least we can treat it better. And the people at HistoSonics have definitely found a way to do that. And that's kind of the brief story. I will say the one thing I would add, and the key, I think, to my success through this journey over the last couple months is having an oncologist who cares. And it means that much to him.
Yeah, we also talked, Bruce, you know, you hear his story. I mean, literally, like, your oncologist and Kevin Burns, who, Mike, how many treatments has Kevin done?
Personally, he's done probably 250, over 250.
And, I mean, that's so many. But he treated you like you were his only patient. Like, he was texting, and you might not realize, but what Kevin did, like, the obvious thing to have treated you was to treat your liver, because that's what it's cleared for in this country. Like, oh, well, just come, we'll treat your liver. But that would have actually been a mistake, because if he got his liver treated first, he would not have qualified for the pancreatic study. And Kevin, because he's so, like, in tune with it, he was like, no, wait, we don't want to treat your liver first. Let me make a call to Barcelona and see if you fit, you know, the inclusion criteria to be treated. And you did. And that, you know, changed the whole course. And now you could get both treated. And it's because he cared. He treated you like you were his only patient, not the 251st.
Yeah, he was, Kevin he was just a great young man. I think he's young. He looks awfully young anyway. Looks like Dookie Howser, kind of, you know. But you know, I was thrilled. I was thrilled with his attitude. I was thrilled that he was aware enough of what was going on with the clinical trials to say, you know what, let's hold on. I can do your liver anytime. Let's get this done. You come back. And as a two-time user of this phenomenal equipment, and both times, actually, Kevin Burns told me that there could be some side effects because they go through the ribs to get to the liver. He said you may feel like somebody hit you in the ribs for a couple days. Never felt that. He said also 3 to 5 days later you could have flu-like symptoms for a week. Never had those either. So I can honestly say I went through both of these treatments and really had, not that I can remember any kind of a side effect that I would consider adverse. And you know, I encourage anybody to take advantage of this if they can, because it's definitely the future. It really is. And I can't thank Mike and his company, David, for bringing it to me. Like I said, my oncologist, who sometimes the language is like that of a sailor, said to me, you got dealt a shitty hand, but since then you've got some pretty good draws. So, you know, I feel very fortunate that I got those draws and have had the opportunity to take advantage of this technology. Any questions?
That's great. And, you know, we should also be thanking you, obviously for coming here, but, you know, you took part in a clinical study. I think you were probably, you know, the first 5 ever treated in the world for pancreatic cancer. And as everyone knows, like, pancreatic cancer is, if not the toughest, one of the toughest. It's just really hard. And, you know, we had more questions. And so we had talked about how you felt about being part of a study. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was, you know, the one thing I learned, and I really didn't know that much about clinical studies, and clinical studies are really not about outcomes, they're about safety. And you do these studies to prove either the procedure or the pill or an operation or whatever it happens to be is safe for humans. And, you know, and so knowing that, my expectations for outcomes were, I was excited, but I had no predetermined feeling for what I was gonna, how it was gonna change my tumor situation. So to your point, part of me was thrilled when they were able to reduce the pancreatic tumor by 60 to 70%. And the other part of me, I just felt like I'm part of something much bigger than that. And to be part of that, and I think there's going to be 30 people in this trial, I think, when they're done. Is that right, Mike?
Yes.
And being part of that small group of individuals, I've talked to one of the others who just finished up in Spain before he went to a gentleman from California. And I think it's exciting to be part of that. And I think, you know that I did my little tiny bit to maybe help lots of people. That makes me feel awfully good also. So.
Yeah, well, like I said, thank you, because you're paving the way for other patients, because we need that safety data to get it cleared, so then it could be like the liver treatment, and you don't have to fly all the way to Spain. You can get it on your new system in Iowa.
Right. I hope so. I hope so.
I'll tell you, we think what you've done is going to be more meaningful than I think you could ever imagine. Dr. Amaral knows this because he was so involved with the company and the pancreas, because it is such a risky organ to do any treatment in, which is part of the challenge. Our thesis has been go slow, do no harm, be safe. Think through how we're going to approach the FDA. I will say that your results and then the dozen now patients who have been treated, it's so overwhelmingly positive. We show the images to your medical oncologist, but world leaders in pancreatic cancer, and they just almost can't believe what histotripsy is capable of doing. So it's has us thinking, how fast can we go? And it's one of the things that I love so much about early stage startup companies is we get to determine how fast we go. We're not limited by processes and big companies and limitations of all the big companies. We make that decision, and we'll go as fast as we think is appropriate. And your treatment, as well as 11 other treatments, really have us planning to engage with the FDA much sooner than we ever would have. And I think there's going to be, you will bring hope to patients here in the U.S. who don't have to travel to Barcelona. We've already shown some of these images to the FDA, and their surgeons were blown away. It gives us real optimism that we can get to market much faster here in the U.S., which then means much faster to market throughout the rest of the globe as well. So I can't thank you enough for being such a pioneer. It probably seemed like a very easy thing for you. The meaning of that is it can't be measured. So thank you, Bruce.
Now you can see why Mike and I became such good friends in over 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's.
We have a few minutes. Any questions for Bruce or any?
I would like to make a comment, Bruce.
Let's get you a mic, Joe. Hang on.
So, Bruce, you came here, and I just want to acknowledge that you are a profile in courage. There's
Thank you.
There's a way to look at this, you know, as Jim said, yeah, you get to go on vacation. And I sit here and I think, here's a man who's just been told he has inoperable cancer of the pancreas, who's going to put himself on an airplane, go to a strange country, go to a strange hospital, have a treatment that's never been done. And having been involved in this early on, as Mike said, I am a sailor. It is scary shit that they did. And look at you. That takes courage.
Well, like I said, I'm very lucky.
So, well, but we are lucky. And it's the element that I think many of us in the room might not appreciate, which is how fortunate we are to have people like you that will enroll in a clinical trial. They're not easy to do, and they're required. So thank you, Bruce.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions?
Shelley?
I wondered if maybe you'd talk a little bit, Mike, around what are the other various indications that this could be used in for future trials?
It's endless. I think one of the things that attracted Jim and venture investors and then myself when thinking about the possibilities, this is histotripsy. It's the equivalent of 100 years ago having a company that has the potential to own a platform like radiation therapy, but without the toxicity, a non-invasive treatment without any toxicity that can be delivered literally anywhere in the body, both for benign and malignant treatments. We're starting in the hardest place possible. We're starting in deep in the body, in targets that move, that are cancerous. These are literally the hardest targets. Everything from here gets easier. So we will be done enrolling patients in our pivotal kidney tumor trial in just a couple of weeks. That submission will go to the FDA later this year. So we'll be commercializing histotripsy for renal masses within the next 18 months. We believe, based on the urology feedback, it'll completely replace partial nephrectomies and very invasive, very complex kidney surgeries can all be done non-invasively with histotripsy. Pancreas is the next. We'll be in man in early next year treating our first benign condition, BPH, which affects an incredible number of men over the age of 70 generally. And then from there, it's a forever thing. Breast tumors, breast cancer, thyroid nodules, and cancer. We've got a platform that we've developed with our partners at the University of Michigan that's currently treating in human cadavers completely non-invasively into the brain. So benign brain tumors, glioblastoma. We've discovered ways or invented ways that we can deliver what we call subthreshold cavitation. So just prior to actually delivering the liquefaction, we can stop the procedure that has the ability to alter white and gray matter and plaque within the brain, could have significant implications on Parkinson's and epilepsy and a whole host of neurological disorders. We can treat brain clots. Our investigator at University of Michigan is the chairman, Dr. Pandy, whose passion is ICH, which is a clot, a hemorrhage in the brain that unfortunately 50% of patients die from. We can liquefy clots within minutes. Standard of care today is days. We can do it within minutes. Kidney stones, gallbladder stones, we've got the ability to erode those into a fine dust. It literally goes on forever, which is what I think gets so many of us so excited.
While David's walking back there, I might comment, the procedure on my pancreatic tumor, the actual procedure took 13 minutes. And the one on my liver took a little bit longer. I think it was approaching 20 minutes. I mean, you're out. They put you under full anesthetic. I'm assuming because keep you from moving. I'm assuming that's why they do it. There's no pain
Yeah, it's all motion.
It's pretty much, I'm sure, to make sure you're not rolling around on the table while they're trying to do their thing, but the fact that...
We don't want you rolling around on the
Yeah,
table, Bruce.
the fact that they were able to do what they were to do in just minutes kind of blows me away when I think about it.
And I didn't want to talk over the animation, and we don't want the animation to be 10 minutes long, but there's a whole process prior to the treatment where we send interrogation sound waves into the targeted area for the system to build a treatment map to determine exactly how much energy is required throughout each one of those points that is histotripsy, where we're delivering the energy. The system remembers that and builds a treatment map and then changes the energy dynamically as it treats. But the importance of that, prior to the physician saying engage treatment, it tells the physician this procedure is going to be 2 minutes and 42 seconds or 13 minutes and 16. It tells them before they even treat exactly how long the procedure is going to take. There's literally nothing like it in the world that existed before Edison. It's pretty cool.